This week on ANN, the Seventh-day Adventist Church mourns the loss of the former leader of the church's Southern Asia-Pacific region.
And the Adventist Development and Relief Agency joins a global effort to end poverty by 2030.
And the Southeast Asian nation of Timor-Leste receives its first Adventist school.
These stories and more are coming right up.
This is ANN, a service of the Seventh-day Adventist World Church. Thanks so much for joining us this week.
First in the news, Alberto Gulfan Jr., former leader of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the Southern Asia-Pacific region, passed away last week at the age of 64 after a battle with cancer. Gulfan served the denomination for 42 years in many roles, including literature evangelist, pastor, hospital chaplain, and health educator. Gulfan served the church's Southern Asia-Pacific region as president for 12 years. He is survived by his wife of 38 years, 3 adult children, and 2 grandchildren. In a letter of condolence to the family, Ted Wilson, president of the Seventh-day Adventist World Church, said, "The World Church has been enriched through Pastor Gulfan's service for God's people. It was a great privilege to associate with Pastor Gulfan as a church leader and as a friend." Funeral services will be held on October 4 at the Adventist International Institute of Advanced Studies in the Philippines. Those wanting to leave tributes can visit adventist.asia/tribute-A Gulfan.
The humanitarian arm of the Seventh-day Adventist Church recently announced its support of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for the coming decades. The Adventist Development and Relief Agency launched its Prayer for Everyone initiative, which shared the UN's global goals with the Adventist Church. The global goals expand and follow up on the Millennium Development Goals, which expire at the end of this year. The UN member states propose 17 goals, which include ending poverty and hunger by the year 2030. Additional goals include ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education, promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all, and reducing inequality within and among countries. Jonathan Duffy, president of Addre International, said, "Addre, as a worldwide organization, is committed to continuing to work toward ending global poverty and injustice." He went on to say, "This is a critical time and the right time to bring impactful and sustainable change to the world. As global citizens, we have to come together to make sure that people are thriving."
Addre has a portfolio that covers all the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Of course, these are 17 targets, like eradicate poverty, end to hunger, clean water, sanitation, the work environment, and of course also the environment, which Addre is very much involved in to keep that, look after creation, let's put it that way. There are 17 goals, and I think it is cross-cutting. You cannot just say, okay, do one thing, because all the projects are more or less focused on eradicating poverty and help people to be self-sufficient.
Administrators for the first Seventh-day Adventist school in Timor-Leste are celebrating the number of students who enrolled for the school year. Teachers and staff of Timor-Leste Adventist International School were anticipating 10 students for their kindergarten international school preparation class and a smaller number for grade 1. Instead, staff were surprised when nearly 30 students enrolled in the kindergarten class. Although the school's temporary building cannot accommodate all the students at once, teachers will offer morning and afternoon classes. The Seventh-day Adventist Church in Timor-Leste credits the high enrollment to the church's outreach in the nation, which involves building relationships and meeting practical needs in communities. The school's next development plan includes meeting in a larger permanent building, which will allow the school to offer up to grade 4.
In South America last month, Addre Peru was recognized by the nation's Congress for its 50 years of service to the nation. The official ceremony took place at the Plaza José Faustino del Congreso. The ceremony also included distributing 50 wheelchairs to children in need. Addre Peru's largest and longest-running program, which empowers women to start businesses while providing literacy, business, and leadership classes, boasts more than 17,000 beneficiaries over the course of its 19 years in operation. The program helps women improve their financial status and the lives of their families and communities. Jonathan Duffy, president of Addre International, who attended the ceremony, said, "They are the #1 microfinance organization in all of Latin America, independently monitored and ranked by the Microfinance Information Exchange and the Multilateral Investment Fund. Their work here in Peru is greatly appreciated and acknowledged by the government."
An Adventist university in the United States recently received $1.6 million from a local business that has maintained its anonymity. The funds will go towards Southern Adventist University's endowment, which supports scholarships. The university's senior vice president for financial administration, Tom Verrill, said, "Anything we can do in this area of scholarships and anything a business does through philanthropy means our students are likely to spend time focusing more on academics and less on the money issues that can sometimes overshadow learning opportunities and the joy of college."
More than 17,000 people attended a religious liberty festival in Madagascar, which was sponsored by the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the southern Indian Ocean region. The day-long Festival of Religious Freedom took place in the nation's capital on September 26. The festival was the first such event to be held on the island nation. The purpose of the event, which drew local and national leaders, was to focus national attention to the fundamental human right of religious freedom and to say thank you to the government for protecting those rights. John Grotz, former Secretary General of the International Religious Liberty Association, which also sponsored the event, met with the nation's Prime Minister and commended the government for its continuing strong commitment to religious freedom and its care for religious minorities. Ganoon Diop, who is the current Secretary General for the IRLA, said these public rallies are effective ways to raise awareness about the issues surrounding religious freedom. He went on to say, if we cherish religious freedom, it's good to express our gratitude, as well as call attention to the challenges others face in places where freedom is restricted by laws or by social hostility.
And finally in the news this week, 4 new Seventh-day Adventist churches were recently opened in the nation of the Dominican Republic in response to growing Adventist membership. The newly finished Adventist churches Luz de Jávila, Misionera de Amor, Brisas del Edén, and Paraíso Escogido were built by Maranatha Volunteers International. 3 of the churches accommodate about 125 people each, while the 4th church can seat 250. Each of the new churches includes Maranatha's basic structure of a roof, a floor, a block wall, Sabbath school classrooms, a platform, baptismal tank, plaster, and paint. Cesario Acevedo, president of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the Dominican Republic, said, "We are so thankful to Maranatha for contributing in a big way to the development of the church in the Dominican Republic." Maranatha began building Adventist churches in the nation in 1992. Since then, the organization has organized 1,200 volunteers to build more than 75 churches.
Coming up, an exclusive commentary about the current state of marriage. You don't want to miss it.
I'll never forget when my wife and I held eye contact as she walked down the aisle toward me on our wedding day. She looked perfect. Her smile lit up the whole garden. And as every eye was transfixed on the most beautiful woman in the world, she was looking at me. And in that moment, we were completely content. Our marriage has had its share of ups and downs, highs and lows, triumphs and disappointments. Some of the best days of my life have been traveling the world with Kimmy, laughing at the most ridiculous things, and exploring God's wondrous creation. But it's in the valleys that the value of holy matrimony truly shines. You see, Kimmy is still there after I preach a bad sermon. Kimmy's still there when I've made a fool of myself. Kimmy's still there even when I'm sick and I'm full of disgusting germs. It is in these moments when marriage truly shines. I think of God going to Adam and seeing him and saying, "It is not good for this man to be alone." God gave Adam the gift of marriage to compensate for his humanity. Marriage is about entering the paradox of mutual submission and being held accountable to that submission by God. Marriage is about living sacrificially for your spouse, giving all that you have for your spouse so that they might be happy, and your spouse doing the same for you.
Are you taking heart medicines? Medications can give us a false sense of security. Even if a person takes heart medicines, eating a lot of saturated or trans fats, fast and junk foods, red and processed meats, sweets, and processed foods will still increase inflammation and make cardiovascular disease worse. That's a fact. But there's hope. A study of more than 31,000 adults found that you can substantially reduce cardiovascular recurrence beyond drug therapy alone by eating a diet rich in vegetables, fruits, and fish, and low in meats. A heart-healthy diet reduced their risk of dying from cardiovascular disease by 35%, a new heart attack by 14%, heart failure by 28%, and stroke by 19%. So eat your veggies. A healthy heart starts with a healthy meal.
Welcome back. In the wake of an extensive data breach that revealed millions of users of an online company that enabled extramarital affairs, we decided to bring in the Family Ministries directors of the Seventh-day Adventist Church to discuss the current state of marriage.
I sat down with Willie and Elaine Oliver to discuss issues surrounding this topic, including repairing damage in a marriage and safeguarding marriages from affairs. Willie and Elaine, thank you so much for being here with us today.
We're delighted.
Thank you for having us.
Several months ago, a website dedicated to matching up married people for affairs was hacked, and the website claims to have had more than 40 million users. What does that say about the current state of marriage?
Well, you know, the current state of marriage is not much different than the past state of marriage. And by that I mean the last 40 years, 50 years. The difference is that now we have social media. Now we have internet, and people are aware of it. But people have been dishonest in marriage for a long, long time. What it does say is that marriage is in a crisis, just like the human race is in a crisis. And that crisis is a lack of Christ. If you don't have a commitment to God, you don't have a commitment to marriage, you don't have a commitment to your partner. That's what it says. People need the Lord.
That's a great point about the social media aspect. I hadn't thought about that before. Once it's discovered that someone has strayed from a marriage or even tried to stray, how do you repair that kind of damage? Can you repair that kind of damage?
Yeah, well, certainly it can be repaired. And what we know is that people seek out affairs for so many reasons. Most times it really is a matter of marriage, their marriage being neglected. Either the person who's done the betraying has just failed to really tune in, to tap into what's happening in their own marriage. Because let's face it, marriage is difficult. It's difficult to live with someone else who's very different than you are and to really come together and grow together. And so what happens in marriage is that if we're not intentional about growing together, you're going to grow apart. And you're going to be curious about these sites because there's an excitement about being in love. There's an excitement about dating and finding something new. And so people start venturing out into other areas like the site because they feel that their own marriage has become ho-hum. So how do we heal from something like this? Clearly, it's a huge betrayal and a betrayal of trust. And so that has to be rebuilt. The thing that I would say that's most primary about, most important about rebuilding and healing is the desire to stay married.
Yes,
it's the desire to stay.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times when this happens, it hurts. The person who's been betrayed is feeling deep pain and deep hurt. And the first thing they want to think is, if I could just get out of this marriage, it's going to be better.
Right.
I want to jump in and say right here as well that people need to be careful because you need to recognize that jumping out of a bad situation doesn't solve it. What we know based on research is that 3 years after a divorce, people are no happier than before they got divorced. So divorce is not the answer. How do we repair this breach, if you will, so that you can have something better going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. And so what we often say to people, I mean, obviously there's some steps that have to be taken. You really have to get counseling. It's important to not try to do it yourself. Now, if it was something where perhaps the person just went to the site and they never actually engaged in it, that's maybe something that you can talk about together.
It's still a breach.
It's still a breach,
Yeah.
but you might be able to work through that on your own. But if the person actually went through with it, this is a huge breach and you're probably going to need a mediator, a good Christian counselor. And what we often say to people is, please go to a Christian counselor who believes in marriage,
Who believes in
who
marriage,
believes
yes.
that marriage can be saved, because we strongly believe that any marriage that wants to be saved can be saved.
Of course, we can never totally safeguard our marriages and guarantee that nobody is going to cheat, but what kinds of steps can we take to prevent this in the first place?
Well, a few things. You know, marriage is not singular by itself. It parallels health. You know, we all know that we're going to die, but we don't have to die at 55 of cirrhosis of the liver. You know, we make choices. We make health choices. We drink more water. We exercise. We eat the right foods. You know, the same thing happens in marriage. What can we do? Begin with a good premarital counseling so that you know what to expect. You know how to navigate marriage. Here's the reality. There's no perfect marriage because there are no perfect people. We're human. We're sinners. We're going to make mistakes. What we're trying here to mitigate is how to not do certain things that become so detrimental to your marriage that it ends in divorce. So, premarital education, I would say once you're married, marriage enrichment. How regularly do you participate in a marriage enrichment event? Yes.
And you know what we love to say to people? Have an affair with your spouse.
Absolutely.
Make it exciting.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing to me that with all the stuff that we have to do, that people could actually find the time to go have an affair.
Who has the time?
How about taking that
time.
energy
Right.
and
Yes.
investing in your spouse?
Yeah.
Buy flowers for her. Put on something nice for him.
Go away on a weekend
Go
to
away on the
someplace
weekend.
new.
Plan something. Can I say this
Special.
word? Special, sexy for each other. You know, the same energy.
Find a
that
new
you-
restaurant that you really enjoy that you've never been to. Something new.
Get
Let's-
out of the routine.
Yeah, absolutely. Get out of a rut.
break the rut.
Get out of a rut.
that you're in, because that's basically what's happening. So you're looking for that same adrenaline rush that you had before you were dating, and now you're saying, "Oh man, you know, marriage is just not fun."
It's
Right.
not
So-
fun unless we choose to make it fun. And every single day, and as Christians, I say, we need to be intentional about it, and we need to ask God to give us a strength, just like living the Christian life. You can't do that without the power of God. You can't do Christian marriage without the power of God.
There's something else that we need to say that's very important. We need to stop flirting. We need to set clearer boundaries.
Flirting with other people.
Flirting with other people. Flirt with each other.
Yeah.
Because again, that's still fun. We can flirt with each other, but we need to stop playing with fire.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
Still to come, a lesson on understanding our planet's integrated geochemical system.
But up next, see what's in the October edition of Adventist World magazine.
My daughter was sick and she had to go to the hospital, and I was still working outside of the home. So my job, they didn't trust me. They felt that I wanted to stay home so bad with my kids that I would lie, or I would, cheat their time in order to be home with my children. And when people don't trust you like that at a job, that just makes you feel like, why should I even be here? So again, I prayed and I asked God to just please help me out of this situation. Please, I know you know the answer. I don't know what else I could do.
Welcome back. Andrew McChesney shares a preview of the cover story of Adventist World magazine.
10 days of prayer, 100 days of prayer, united in prayer. What are all these? These are all initiatives by the Adventist World Church to help members draw closer to God. These initiatives are also part of the Adventist World Church's strategy for the next 5 years. Like a business corporation, the Church has a strategy with clear goals that it aims to fulfill in the 5 years from 2015 to 2020. I wrote about the Adventist Church's strategic vision for the cover story of the Adventist World's October issue. Not only can you read about the plan in Adventist World, but you can also read about the plan in action. You see, I spoke with a married couple in Kenya who took part in the 100 Days of Prayer initiative a few months ago. Their prayer group started small, but it grew to several hundred people. Among the people who joined their prayer group were 50 pastors from other denominations. Guess what happened? In June, 16 of those pastors were baptized into the Seventh-day Adventist Church. A few weeks ago, 2 of those pastors' churches voted to become Seventh-day Adventist churches. This was all because of an Adventist church initiative called 100 Days of Prayer that was blessed by the Holy Spirit. Read more about it and other news from the Adventist Church in the October issue of Adventist World.
While the concept of a planet made up entirely of water may sound serene, it wouldn't make suitable conditions to maintain any form of life as we know it. The Geoscience Research Institute has more.
Have you ever opened a warm, carbonated beverage? I'm about to open this can of root beer, which is in a boiling water bath. This should be pretty exciting, so we'd better go outside. So here we go. We'll see what happens. Yeah, it's pretty hot. You ready? Ouch. Wow. Compare that with this cold can, which has been in ice water. That's nothing like as exciting. Why? Because carbon dioxide dissolves more readily in cold water than in hot water. This turns out to be very important when it comes to the ability of life to survive on Earth. Water is essential to life as we know it. In addition, life can only survive when a relatively narrow range of temperatures exists, basically those in which water exists as a liquid. Water tends to stabilize temperatures on the Earth, and carbon dioxide, because it acts as a greenhouse gas, also plays an important role in regulation of temperature. Imagine a water world, one that's totally covered in oceans. It's tempting to think it would be hospitable to life. But a recent paper in Monthly Notices of the Royal Astronomical Society shows that this is probably not the case. The problem is that the solubility of carbon dioxide in water makes maintaining life-friendly temperatures almost impossible. Carbon dioxide tends to leave warm water and go into the atmosphere, and atmospheric carbon dioxide traps heat, further warming surface water, causing more carbon dioxide to leave, resulting in still higher temperatures and so on. This is an example of positive feedback. But consider the alternative. If surface water temperatures are below a certain point, atmospheric carbon dioxide will dissolve in the water. As carbon dioxide leaves the atmosphere, entering the cool water, the Earth loses more heat without this greenhouse gas to trap it. And water cools more, leading to more carbon dioxide absorption and further cooling. A water-covered planet would most likely be driven to temperatures either too cold or too hot for life. How is it then that our 71% water-covered Earth maintains temperatures in which life can exist? The secret lies in its continents. When silica-rich continental rocks weather, they help to buffer the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and thus maintain, along with other factors, Earth's life-friendly temperature range. Understanding the carefully integrated geochemical systems that allow life to exist helps us to appreciate how specially designed for life our Earth is. This makes me think of the Spirit of God moving on the face of the waters, and the necessity of creating the atmosphere and continents in quick succession, so that a temperature-stable world existed for life to inhabit.
For this week's Social Media Report, Angela Taipei shares how Facebook groups can advance your ministry's communication efforts.
So you've started a new Bible study group at church. Wonderful. Now, how do you let everyone know about things that happen in between the times you meet? Nowadays, there are so many ways to keep connected. You could create an email list, group text, WhatsApp group, or even a Twitter group message. But if all your participants are on Facebook, you might consider starting a Facebook group. A group can be as large or as small as you need. From the top, you can click on the arrow and select Create a Group. Then just name it, add members you want included, and select the privacy level of the group. You can make it public for anyone to join and see, closed so only members can see the posts, or secret so only members can see the group. In your group, you can create events which can automatically invite all the group members. You can add members at any time and designate others as administrators. You can conduct polls by asking the group a question and setting the options they can choose from. And you can even attach files to the discussion for your members to view and download. What you may not know is that in your group setting, you can set up an email address. This will allow any email sent to that address to post directly to the group's discussion board, in case your members are more comfortable using email than Facebook. There's also a Facebook Groups app, which helps you stay connected with your groups wherever you are. You can find it in the App Store or in Google Play.
And now let's turn to David Trim for a look at Adventist history. This week, learn about the first Adventist baptism in the southern African nation of Malawi.
Welcome to This Week in Adventist History. On September 27 and 28 in 1862, a meeting of Seventh-day Sabbath keepers was held at Avon, Wisconsin. They formed the Illinois and Wisconsin Conference. This was just the fourth conference organized by Seventh-day Adventists. Prominent Wisconsinite Adventist pioneer Isaac Sanborn was elected president of the conference. 8 months later, he played a prominent role in the founding of the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. When the conference was organized, there were 20 churches with around 500 members in Wisconsin and Illinois. 8 years later, the two states became separate conferences. Today, there are nearly 8,000 members in Wisconsin and over 13,000 in the Illinois Conference. On September 30, 1905, the first Adventist baptism in Malawi, then the British colony of Nyasaland, took place when 7 men were baptized by Thomas H. Branch at Malamulo Mission Station. Branch was a black American missionary, only the second black American Adventist missionary, in fact. He, with his wife Henrietta, had arrived at Malamulo late in 1901. Also on September 30, but in 1963, the Instituto Universitario Eclesiastico Adventista, or the Adventist University Institute of Venezuela, as it's known today, was founded in the city of Maracay. 3 years later, it moved to its current location of Nirgua, around 100 kilometers inland from the east or Caribbean coast of Venezuela. Today, it has some 450 students. That was This Week in Seventh-day Adventist History.
Thank you so much for watching ANN. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
And in the meantime, join our global conversation on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can connect with Adventists worldwide through more stories, photos, and videos. Visit Facebook/Adventist News, Twitter @Adventist Church, and Instagram @Adventist Church.
And our good news for this week comes from the book of Psalms, chapter 100, verse 5. The passage says, "For the Lord is good, his unfailing love continues forever, and his faithfulness continues to each generation."
That's our program for this week, and remember, you can always visit news.adventist.org for daily news and videos. Until next time, God bless.
Take care.